calm but engaging tone. Picture this: a land parched by drought, under a sky that seems to have forgotten its promise of rain. The earth cracks beneath every step as famine slowly clutches the hearts of the people. This is the backdrop of an extraordinary story, a tale of faith, sacrifice, and divine provision. This, my friends, is the story of the widow of Zarephath. Curtly. The setting is Zarephath, a small town nestled between Israel and Phoenicia, modern-day Lebanon. It's a time when the prophet Elijah roams, a man called by God to be his voice in turbulent times. You may remember him from previous stories, calling fire from heaven and standing firm for God against all odds. But this time, Elijah's journey has brought him to a moment of quiet reliance, where he will witness a miracle born from the unlikeliest source. Enthusiastic. To understand this story, you first need to meet the widow at Zarephath. She is unnamed in the scriptures, an ordinary woman with an extraordinary burden. She's a single mother raising a young son, facing the brink of starvation. With nothing left but a handful of flour in a jar and a small amount of oil in a jug, she ventures out to gather sticks to prepare what she believes will be their last meal. Yes, last. A final supper before the shadow of famine claims them both, shifting tone to warm and calm. At this moment, the widow encounters Elijah. The prophet, worn from his journey but filled with divine purpose, calls out to her. "Please bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink," he says, pausing. Now remember, this is a time when water is more precious than gold. But even in her dire situation, the widow begins to fetch the water. And then comes Elijah's unexpected request. "And please, bring me a piece of bread." Astonished tone. Stop for a moment. Can you feel the weight of this moment? This widow, desperate and struggling, facing her own crisis, must decide what to do. Will she protect her last shred of sustenance? Or will she trust this strange man who carries the word of God? Her response is raw and heart-wrenching. "As surely as the Lord your God lives, I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Pause, and then warm reassurance. But Elijah, filled with faith and God-given confidence, replies, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you said. But first, make me a small loaf of bread from what you have and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." Captivating tone building up. And here comes the crucial point in this story. The widow, against all logic and despite her desperate situation, dares to trust. She goes home, uses the last of her ingredients as instructed, and bakes the bread. Astonished tone. And lo, the miracle happens. The jar of flour does not empty. The jug of oil does not dry out. Day after day, as the famine continues to rage, the widow, her son, and the prophet Elijah find sustenance. God sustains them with a miraculous provision, a never-ending supply of flour and oil, firm and thoughtful. What's remarkable here isn't just the provision itself, it is the trust. The widow gave up her very last in an act of faith, and God honored that faith. Her story, though tucked quietly in the scriptures, speaks volumes to those of us who have ever walked through moments of scarcity and helplessness. It reminds us of a God who sees us and provides in ways we can't always understand. Transition to a note of warning and hope. But the story doesn't end there. Later, tragedy strikes. The widow's son becomes gravely ill and dies. The heartbreak is immense, and her grief even leads her to question Elijah, and perhaps even God himself. But Elijah doesn't give up. He takes the boy upstairs, stretches himself upon him, and cries out to God. "Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him." he prays earnestly, proud and soft. And once again, God shows his power. Life returns to the boy, and Elijah brings him back to his mother. In her profound joy and disbelief, she declares, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." Slower with reflection. This story, from famine to miracle, from sorrow to restoration, teaches us many lessons. It speaks of faith that moves mountains, or in this case, jars of flour and jugs of oil. It speaks of God's provision that transcends our understanding. It reminds us that even in moments of doubt, His faithfulness is unfailing. Closing with gentle assurance. Friend, if you've ever felt like the widow of Zarephath, worn out, desperate, unsure of what tomorrow holds, know this: God sees you. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Just as He provided for her, He can provide for you. You just have to be willing to trust that He'll make a way, even when it seems impossible. A warm, concluding smile. That's the story of the widow of Zarephath, an ordinary woman in extraordinary circumstances, a tale of unfathomable faith and divine miracles. What do you take away from her story? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned for more incredible stories in our series. Until next time, may your faith grow stronger each day.